When you live with RA, exercise can be an emotionally loaded idea. If you've had a big setback, maybe you had a bad flare, maybe you had an injury, maybe you have trouble finding a medication that works. And in those situations, what we normally think of as exercise may be too much. It may cause flares. It may just, simply be too much. But there is an alternative, a gentler approach. And in this Talk Over RA video, I'm going to share my own recent experience with a significant setback and how I'm building back my strength and stamina, which in other words is called fitness, but I prefer not because sometimes it's different when you have a chronic illness. I'm Lena Anderson, and this is The Seated View. Welcome to the second day of Talk Over RA. Before I get going, let me just thank AbbVie for supporting the development of this content. Just so you know, they had no editorial role. Everything I've developed, the content, my ideas, my views, they're all my own. Also, just a heads up that this is for information purposes only. It's not medical advice. If you need to talk to someone about your own experience of RA, you should talk to your doctor. So let's get started. Do you have trouble exercising with RA? Let me know below, and we'll keep the conversation going. So let's talk about what gets in the way of exercise. On the Talk Over RA website, which is talkoverra.ca, I'll link that below. 88% of people with RA have pain. 90% have difficulty doing daily activities. 70% feel that they have had to give up activities such as school, work, social life. That's a lot of people who have difficulty using their body. And when you have difficulty using your body, it's probably safe to assume that you also have some difficulty with exercise. And I'm one of those people. Regular exercise makes me flare. My body has been wrecked by untreated RA for decades because there simply wasn't the more effective medications we have now. And even physiotherapy makes me flare. And every time I meet a new healthcare person, inevitably, they will ask about exercise. And if I say I can't exercise, they go, but range of motion. And that's also a problem because somebody that usually involves another person moving your body, your arms, your legs, etc. And it's really easy for other people to take me beyond where my body wants to be, which means flare, injury, been there. So it's really frustrating to always have this question brought up when you know it doesn't work for you. And then I started making a sort of smart-ass comment, but also very true. I reply now that my life is a range of motion exercise, and that usually ends the conversation. But here's the thing. The truth in that is living my life keeps me moving. And everyday activities also help me stay stronger, or get stronger rather. And the important part of this is the type of physical activity doesn't matter. I've learned that intentionally moving your body with the aim of getting stronger is exercise. What you do to get there doesn't matter. So if you define this exercise this way, intentionally moving your body with the aim of getting stronger, what do you do that could qualify as exercise, even though it may not, be seen generally as such? Add your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. So here's my story. If you've been following me for a while, you know the last year has been, well, a doozy. I had a forced medication change. I went off the medication that has kept me in remission for 18 years, and I had to try a similar but cheaper option. I talked about this yesterday in my video on motivation, so you can check that out as well. So I tried 3 alternative medications, and each of them triggered a different comorbidity, but they also weren't working as effectively as my original medication. And after 7 months, thankfully, I was approved to go back to my tried and true med. But around that time, I also discovered just how much this experiment had affected my health. I felt worse. I felt weaker, and I even had the numbers to prove it. My blood tests were not as good as they had been 7 months prior, and my lung capacity has actually gone down by 15%. That was an interesting thing to find out. Turns out that this medication I take for my RA also supports a number of other things in my body, such as my asthma and just my overall strength. So it was obvious at this time that I needed to work on getting stronger. It's also frustrating. We'll talk about the emotional impact in a little bit. So I've had setbacks before, and I know how to do this. And there's 4 steps in this. Number 1, talk to your doctor. Your rheumatologist is an important partner in your life with RA. And when you talk to them about your need to get stronger, you need 2 pieces of information. You need your assessment of your current health, and you need its impact on your daily life. And one of the tools that can help you do this is the Talk Over RA discussion guide. It's one example of a tool that can help you explain how you feel and how it impacts your life. And you can find this on the Talk Over RA website and linked below. And what I like about this approach is that you can use this, you can use a piece of paper, it's, whatever. But it is important to include in your report to your doctor the impact on your life, because it makes it real in a different way. Having a bit of increased pain or some extra weakness, that's one thing, but having trouble working, having trouble taking care of yourself, having trouble taking care of your family, all of that can be really important information when you talk to your doctor. Now, your doctor may recommend physiotherapy, which I've had in the past, and it worked in the past, can't anymore. And I've also had enough physiotherapy that I can take what I've learned over the years and implement it myself. But if you haven't done this building back before, I recommend you see a physiotherapist. They can also be an important accountability partner if you see them a couple of times. Doing it on your own can be isolating, but having someone to kind of help you adjust exercises that hurt or kind of cheer you on can be really important. They can also find, it's not just a cheerleader, a physiotherapist is an expert in finding exercises your joints can tolerate, as well as having tools that can help deal with your pain. So they can be a really important first step. But if you're too wrecked to feel that you're ready to start physiotherapy, or you can't afford it, you obviously have to do it yourself. And of course, even if you see a physiotherapist, you have to keep up with the exercises in between appointments. So this is where we get to step 2, which is start where you are. Pick a physical activity that is appropriate for your current fitness level. This helps you not overdo things, because that will lead to an injury and then a flare. And then it's the 2 steps forward, 3 steps back thing, and we don't want to do that. It means that depending on how wrecked you are, new medical term, start slowly with something that's easy and doable, and they could be daily chores. Yes, making lunch counts. Vacuuming counts. That's a workout. That's a real workout. And for me, one of my core exercises is making a cup of tea, because it involves stretching to my limit several times, like turn the water on, put the cup under the water, then open the microwave, and then stretch in there, and so on. And what it does, it's a workout, a range of motion workout for my upper body, but there's also strength training in that, because holding a full cup of water like this, that it makes it heavier. That can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you then hold the movement a little longer. And obviously what you can do depends on how well you were before your setback and how significant your setback is. The key is to find your limit and push gently just over your limit, but not enough to flare. And it will take some trial and error to find out where that limit is. You may have, you may hurt yourself in the beginning, quite honestly, but it's a learning tool. You go, okay, that was too much. Next time I do less, right? And it's all about learning to listen to your body and respecting its messages, because there is such a thing as, that's a good pain, like pain. That feels like I'm working my body, and oh, that feels like too much. And when you're ready to go beyond daily activities and have to kind of find something that challenges your body a bit more, then pick something that's interesting and fun, because that will make it more likely that you'll do it the next day and the next day and the next day and so on. Because if it's boring, you won't do it. And then you have to kind of kick yourself. Like then you get into motivation. And when you're not doing well, there isn't a lot of motivation to be had, right? So it's all about you keep pushing yourself slightly over the limit as gradually as you need. And remember, it's important not to measure your progress by other people, because then, that's a recipe for depression. Your fitness journey exists in the context of your life, your health, and your current ability. Whatever keeps your body moving will be right for you. So if somebody else is doing better, for instance, I know someone who runs marathons with RA, and I'll never do that. But they can, because they have different impact. RA has a different impact on their body, and their health is in a different place. So good for them. But I'm not ever gonna run a marathon. My fitness journey looks, I don't want to say smaller, because that can have a judgment, but my fitness journey is based on where I am, right? And for me, one of my favorite forms of exercises is taking long walks in my wheelchair. And most people think driving a power wheelchair is kind of a passive experience, but not. No. First of all, pushing your joystick, like you make this movement, right? Pushing a joystick for hours is exercise, but also each bump in the sidewalk or when I cross the street travels up through the chair into my feet on my footrests, and it gives a workout to the muscles in my legs, my back, my core, all of it really. And I can attest to that. As I'm filming this, I have just had a visit from a friend, and we spent 3 days traipsing all over Toronto, and boy, am I sore. But I'll pay for it for a few days. But A, it was a lot of fun, and B, I know it pushed me further on my fitness journey. So I can also intensify a walk by bringing my camera, which means I'm bending and twisting to get the shots I want. Again, fun for me. And over time, my strength increases and the walks get longer. What do you think something you enjoy, what is something you might enjoy that you think can be made into an exercise tool for you. I think it'd be great if you could share some ideas in the comments, because I bet you there's people out there who might kind of feel at a loss and need some ideas. So if you have someone or some ideas about what can be an interesting way to move your body, leave it in the comments. Step 3, be realistic about timelines. Building back often takes longer than you think. I learned that the hard way. And this is how it is for me. I look at how long it took me to get wrecked. In this most recent case, it was 7 months. And then over time, I've learned that it takes about the same amount of time to build back. At one point when I was really wrecked, it took years. But this last experience was 7 months. And I'm in month 6 of building back. And I'm almost there. I can feel that I'm almost there. So knowing that comes with a caveat, though. It has to be done right. It can't be rushed. I am quite disabled by RA, and so my approach to building back means, like I said, regularly going to just my limit and just a tiny bit over, knowing that if I do more, it'll trigger a flare and will set me back again. So it's this journey of baby steps. But I know that works for me, and that means there is a largely forward journey rather than back and forth, right? And when you listen to your own body, it'll help you discover what you can do and how far you can push yourself. And so obviously your mileage might vary in terms of how long it takes you to build back and where you were before. As I mentioned, like if you were really strong and really physical before you had the setback, it may be a faster journey for you. So now we come to step 4, which is the emotional side of building back. And I'm not going to lie to you that, like, giving your body the space and time to rebuild can be intensely frustrating. It takes a long time. It does. And you want to get on with your life, right? But when you get frustrated, or you feel sad, or you feel anxious, allow yourself to have those feelings. Like God knows, I certainly did. And when you're in that emotional space, it's human to look for someone to blame. It's a variation of the if only game. If only this didn't happen. And then you kind of go, but it did happen and I'm mad at it, right? It could be your RA, what happened just before you got injured, like playing back, wishing you could go back in time and not do that. What happened just before you flared, or if you've had a forced medication shift, blaming the entity that created that situation. And I've had moments. I'll admit I've had moments. But in most situations, this may not be the way forward. Was I angry and frustrated and depressed? Oh, you bet. But I also found a way to deal with that separately with the help of a therapist. And if you're interested in learning more about therapy, I did an Instagram live yesterday with a Toronto therapist named Gwen Merrick on how therapy can be helpful when you live with a chronic illness. So check out my Instagram at The Seated View on that platform. The reason spending a lot of time with my feelings at that point, why I chose not to spend a lot of time there, rather, was I needed to protect what little energy I had from being consumed by depression. Because once, I know firsthand as well, once you get sucked into that depression, it's impossible. Not impossible, it is much harder to take action. And I knew at this time I needed to take action every day to build back my strength, which is not to say that you can willpower yourself out of depression, but there are situations with chronic illness where you can say, it's almost like a fork in the road, where you can say, all right, I have two choices. I can feel these feelings, or I can work on getting back. And that was sort of what I dealt with. Like, I made sure that I wasn't just suppressing the feelings, because that's not good for you either. I talked to my own therapist, But so basically, I asked myself if paying attention to these feelings served me at the time and place I was in. And the answer was no, because I needed to move forward. And I felt that paying too much attention to those feelings of blame and sadness and anger would hold me back. So I reminded myself repeatedly of the long timeline and to be careful to pay attention to the positive, which, again, if you know me for a while, you know that one of my core coping strategies with RA is to find the joy in the small things. And I knew that doing this would help me stay focused and get to do the work that I needed to get stronger. And 6 months later, I'm almost here, almost there. So how do you deal with the frustration about moving your body and RA? I'd like to hear your story. And if you have any questions, by all means, leave them below. Just a note before I go, check out the other participants in the Talk Over RA campaign. I have the schedule in various places, and we all, at some point, many of us are talking about ways of moving your body at different levels of RA effect. And then other people might also give you some good tips. So that's it for me today. You can also check out my content for the Talk Over RA campaign on my Instagram, as well as my blog, thecw.com. And you can read my post there on this journey of getting better. I hope you've enjoyed these last 2 days of talking over RA, and I'd love to hear your story. Have a great day. I'll see you later.